Hi, this is Tapcat and welcome to my latest Q&A. Before I start, let me just apologize in advance for all the names I'm about to butcher. I will do my best to pronounce them correctly, but you can pretty much be assured that I won't. So first up, Debrienne Johnson. What got me into gaming? Boy, I've been drawn to gaming for as long as I can remember. As a kid, I was always fascinated with the kind of games, that kids always play. Later, I got into Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. I think the thing that pulls me into a lot of games is the puzzle aspect. Certainly Magic was to me just this great, endless game of like the deepest imaginable rock, paper, scissors, where you'd think of a strategy and how to make it better. And there's always a way to counter that. And so there was always a new rabbit hole for my mind to go down. So I guess the broad category I would put it under is I do tend to like games that make me think in some way. And then there are other games that also pull me in. He also asked, what's my real name? Puddin' Tame. Ask me again and I'll tell you the same. Andrew Small says that it looks like War of the Chosen has opened up more options in the .ini files, and he provided a link to that. Any chance we could reduce the voiceovers from Bradford and the rest? Andrew, I promise I will look into that. As you know, I am not a big fan of all the chatter that goes on. I don't really love it no matter what when I'm playing XCOM, but I will tell you it's especially frustrating when you're trying to record a Let's Play, and as I'm in the middle of trying to talk about something, one of these guys cuts in to just provide this kind of atmospheric chatter. Anyway, I will look at it. Just realize I have recorded quite a few installments ahead, so you won't see any change for a while, no matter what. Melhem Mokahal asks, I have two questions. When will I make guides for War of the Chosen? And do I have any tips specific for War of the Chosen, especially for those who just started their first playthrough in that campaign? So let me just say, I did not record my first XCOM 2 guide until I had completed one campaign on Commander and then a second one on Legend. And I did a total of 3 guides during my entire third campaign. And that was also on Legend, of course. So only after completing 3 campaigns, 2 of which were on Legend, did I make a bunch of guides for XCOM 2. That's not accidental. I did that because I wanted to make guides that would actually be based on having a working knowledge of the game and giving people advice that I knew would work no matter what level you're at and you're trying to get to the next level of success. I can look you in the eye and say, listen, this can help you win all the way through Legend Iron Man. Now, you may ultimately decide you like a better or a different, way to build or equip your Ranger, but this can get you over the hump. And I know that because I've done it myself to prove it. So I'm not saying I'll wait until I've played 3 War of the Chosen campaigns, but what I am saying is right now I've played about 20 missions of War of the Chosen, and it would be a joke for me to do a guide. I need to play a full campaign and feel confident that what I'm telling you has weight. It has merit. And I could be like, the big channels that spew out this, hey, 10 things you should know before you play War of the Chosen. And it's pretty much all stuff you would learn for yourself in about the first hour or 2. I'd get a lot of views and I would have garbage on my site. So I'm not going to do that. I know, obviously, there's a big demand for tips right at the start, but it's going to take me time to get to that point. Aber Garcia asks, the weirdest bug I've encountered in any game. That question itself sent my mind down the rabbit hole, and I was trying to think, like, what is a weird bug that I've ever encountered? I think it's probably in XCOM Enemy Within, when in certain circumstances, you could literally have a soldier standing directly in front of an alien and not have line of sight and not be able to shoot. No cover, no nothing, just you standing in front of it, and you couldn't fire. Joey Castaldo asks, with the changes to the way you can advance soldiers in XCOM 2 War of the Chosen, what are some interesting combinations I've come up with? What are some tips on building your soldiers? And he also correctly points out this could probably use its own video. Probably the most interesting interaction that I've seen just in, my early stage is a negative one. I quite like the blood trail ability for the Reapers. I'm not saying it's amazing, but it helps. It helps compensate for their low base damage. But Shredder is one of the things they can be offered from the XCOM pool, and where Shredder, you really want to use that first to get rid of armor. Blood Trail specifically rewards you for shooting second. So there was an example of something where I like both abilities, but you really don't necessarily want them on the same guy. The one above all asks, can you play multiplayer with us? And my answer is I would gladly do that if I was into multiplayer games. There is literally nothing I've played in years that is multiplayer that I'm at all interested in. I think the last one I tried was Dead by Daylight. I was just fascinated. I thought it was such a cool game. I expected to be terrible. I was terrible. And so I played it just a tiny bit, in pickup groups. And then I quit playing because I didn't want to do that to other people who would count on me. I wasn't a good enough killer to be entertaining, and I wasn't a good enough, escapee. I forget what they call it. So anyway, yeah, I just don't play multiplayer games. Lord 6617 asks, which is the better game, Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri, Civilization 4, Civilization 6, or Civilization Beyond Earth? So the only two games that I have played a full campaign of from that list are Beyond Earth and Civ 6. I never played Alpha Centauri or Civ 4. I didn't care for Civ 6 or Beyond Earth. And at least based on what I've heard, I would think that Alpha Centauri and Civ 4, they're both much better appreciated games, but I haven't got the personal experience to pick a favorite out of that group. Also, and this is an interesting question to me, what do I think of Join RBS, a 10-hour speed run of XCOM 2 on Legend, and he did that in War of the Chosen. What does it say about the game in general? So in my eyes, that actually speaks well of the game, because I think one criticism you can make of XCOM is that they're on the strategy level. I usually feel like I'm almost on rails. There aren't a lot of true strategic choices. It's just prioritizing. Do you want armor or weapons? Well, you want both. You just have to pick which one you're going to do first, right? Now, if somebody had the will to look and the ingenuity to find a way to finish the game in 10 hours, I think that's amazing. Now, I personally don't have any desire to try to play the game that way. Speed runs in general are just not something I've ever enjoyed or even thinking about. I just don't care about them. But I think it's good when there's more than one way to approach a game. And so that's cool. I wouldn't have even thought it was possible. So all I can say is good on him. And I'm glad the game has enough flexibility. Basically there's maybe more there than I thought there was, options and how to approach it. Der Birnodin says, in War of the Chosen, how strong do you find the new classes? He personally felt like the Templar was kind of weak. But anyway, I don't know what to tell you. Again, I'm early on, so I feel like I can't really offer a good opinion on these classes. So far, I actually really like the Templar. I'm not saying it's the best of the three, but it's probably the one I've had the most fun playing. And Rend alone, for the option to choose between parry and a move, wow, I love that ability so much. So even though I've started getting other abilities, that are like true psionics, I just find myself wanting to use Rend like every turn. Eddie Owen asked, do I have any ideas about if and when a face reveal may happen? And I will tell you in all honesty, it's not even something I think about except when a viewer asks me. I have no plans to ever do a face reveal. I'm not taking any kind of blood oath against it or anything like that, but it's not something I'm interested in doing or that I have any real desire to do. He also asked, did I have a lot of friends in school? I didn't. I got along well with pretty much everybody, but I am definitely an introvert by nature. I'm not like a natural mixer, And so I had a few people that I was very close to and that I hung out with. And like I say, in different classes, I would certainly talk to people who sat near me and I had a good relationship with them, but not friends, right? So anyway, yeah, that's that. Cron X asks, does anything excite me in XCOM in general? Low percent hits, a repeater kill on an avatar, that kind of thing. I tend to be, as you can probably tell if you watch my Let's Plays, I tend to be fairly even-keeled, but I would say that what does it for me is when I'm in a situation that seems impossible, and then we win. And that's what really pulled me into XCOM in the first place and kept me playing and why I like Iron Man is that like there's no do-overs. So when you think you are done, they are going to wipe you out and you manage to pull off a win, that feeling really is great. And there's not a lot of games that can match that. Jay asks how I feel about PewDiePie's recent usage of racial slurs. Well, it's repugnant to me, and I've definitely lost respect for him. I don't pretend to know whether there's actual malice behind it or if he's just that thoughtless and careless with what he chooses to say and do. But either way, it's a pretty foolish and self-destructive way to act. I will give him credit for offering an apology after the latest incident when he was streaming PUBG. At least to my ears, it sounded sincere, and hopefully he'll learn something from all of this. Beyond that, I fear he hasn't just damaged his own reputation. This is just going to be the latest thing that scares advertisers away from YouTube. Because PewDiePie isn't just the biggest star we have. His videos are going to be seen as representative of what companies can expect to be associated with if they place ads on this platform. And let's be honest, how different is he from a lot of other channels, especially gamers? A lot of YouTubers hold themselves to no standards of behavior whatsoever. I mean, if you can lie to your fans and get them to go to a gambling website you own, why not? And if they're underage, who cares? If you feel like calling every woman you see in a video game bitches or whores, why not? There's just literally no sense of being in a public forum or that your viewers deserve at least as much basic courtesy and respect as you would pay to a stranger in real life. And for a long time, that's mostly been ignored. But now advertisers are taking a hard look at it and they don't like what they see. Most companies don't want their brands associated with a lot of what goes on here. And I'm not sure how quickly a lot of them are going to come back if they ever do. Now, YouTube is doing what they always do, which is to try and build an algorithm to identify content that could be offensive. But spoilers, it doesn't work very well. And personally, I'm pretty skeptical they'll ever be able to automate that process. But we'd better hope they can, because they need to make it work and they need to convince advertisers that it works, or YouTube as it exists today is going to cease to exist. It may put most videos behind a paywall or find some other solution, but they can't survive as it is without major ad revenue, and it would be physically impossible to have people manually review every video that gets uploaded on a daily basis. All right, that's probably more than you really were looking for. I could go on that topic for a whole video's worth, but I'll leave it at that. Blue asks, who will win the World Series? The Hanshin Tigers is my answer. And on a more serious note, any thoughts on revisiting Battle Brothers? I never think about revisiting Battle Brothers. Alessandro DePena asks, if somebody asked me to play as a character in a D&D quest, but XCOM style, would you partake in such quest? If you mean literally in a D&D game, then no. I played D&D, a long time ago. I'm pretty much done with that now. I always loved the idea of a role-playing game, but I was really never in one where I felt like it lived up to that. Up to what I imagined it could be. And so at this point, they take so much time that I think I've just, moved on from that to other pastimes. Oriole and Proud says he has a few questions. So if there were a new XCOM 2 game coming out and I was in charge of the game design, would I change or update any of the systems like combat or micromanaging, adding anything new and so forth? So sure, I have obviously not sat down and created a design document or anything. A couple of things that I would like to see change would be more genuinely strategic options in the game. I think there's very little of that right now. Like if you compare it to Civilization 5, where you can go for a diplomatic victory, a science victory, a warfare victory, there's this real choice about the basic approach you're going to take to the game. XCOM 2, we're all pretty much going down the same tunnel, and you just prioritize some things differently for the most part. I don't know. Maybe a game like XCOM is just not practical. Like, do you really want a diplomatic victory against the aliens? Probably not. But would it be possible to have something like, hey, I'm going to invest in stealth technology and have that actually matter, you know? Or you could invest in really heavy armor that could truly protect your soldiers and develop a meaningful tank class. If you could have genuinely different approaches to the game that were equally viable, that might be interesting, right? The other thing that I really wish had been done in XCOM 2, and I would love to see in XCOM 3, is that at least on Legend difficulty, by the time you can research psionics and build a psionics lab, I feel like it doesn't matter anymore. It's too late. And I wish you could have a psionic trooper from the beginning of the game. And if that means they have to make them weaker or change how you level them up or whatever, I don't care. That's fine. But I wish you could have the psionic powers earlier in the game or take them out, because the way it is now, I really can't stand it. Heisei Sasaki asks, what are Advent burgers made of? Is it humans? I'm going to say it's probably made of Soylent Green. Also, have you ever played Elder Scrolls Skyrim? And I have not. I did play Oblivion, and I tried it twice. And both times, I just didn't really make it that deep into the game before I lost interest. Alien Moth Probe asks, would I like to see events added to XCOM? The example was kill so many Advent troops in a week and earn weapons or mods, that kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to something like that if it made sense in the story. So for example, if you did something and that increased your relationship with the Resistance, and then as a result, you got supplies or something like that, that would be cool. But in terms of just grafting it on, like if it felt grafted on, like, oh, you killed 10 shield bearers, so here's a new weapon mod. That doesn't really make any sense to me, so I wouldn't want to see it. The other issue I have right now is that I think in War of the Chosen, there are so many more things going on, so many notifications when you're on the world screen. I don't actually want to see anything of that type added until they strip some things out, which they won't do, of course. Rasco Hunter asked what difficulty he should play War of the Chosen on. He's played Commander through one full campaign and is now halfway through on Legend. This is base game. And so when he moves to War of the Chosen, what would you pick? You know, it really comes down to your personal preference there. Supposedly, the developer's goal was that War of the Chosen would not be more difficult than the base game. I think it's debatable whether they hit that mark or not. But what I would say is that it's certainly not like tremendously more difficult, other than the fact that you're definitely learning new things. But I would say, listen, if you're comfortable as you play through this campaign on Legend, there's no reason you couldn't try War of the Chosen that way. But it kind of comes down to whether you want to stretch a little bit or play it safe. But I would say just go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You know, so even if you don't do well, you just start over and, you know, so what? Thunderbird the Great asks, what's my favorite game of all time and why? I think I've answered this before. It's probably City of Heroes, because the characters that I created in that game were the most unique of any game I've ever played. They were truly my characters, like my creations. And everything that made them what they were, like, came from me in a way no other game was ever like. And so I really loved that about the game. The Quetot asked what I think about an XCOM 2 multiplayer campaign, and he describes it in a little bit of detail, like the basic idea of you and another person. One would be Advent, one would be XCOM, and it would be like a full campaign. So I will tell you, I think that the idea that two people will commit to a campaign that will last dozens of hours is really questionable. I don't see that really being a thing in any numbers, and developing a campaign like that would probably take at least close to double the resources that just designing XCOM 2 did. So I can't imagine such a thing would ever be made. I just don't. So personally, I wouldn't have any interest in it. I don't play multiplayer. I don't really like playing against other people in games to begin with. And so, and to commit to try to find someone who would play through, again, like dozens and dozens of missions that way, I can't imagine. Super Giga 64 asks if I have other playthroughs of games I'm planning on doing during or after XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. You know, I got to tell you, I've reached a point where I never have an actual plan anymore, because every time I think I have decided something, it never really works out that way. During XCOM 2, I will absolutely not start another full playthrough unless it would be very late. In other words, I've recorded through to the very end, and now I have some time on my hands. But realistically, once I do that, I'll probably be working on guides for War of the Chosen. What I would like to do, and this is not a plan, it's an idea, but I have thought about doing just like a handful of episodes where we take a game that is also tactical in nature and just show like a sample of how it plays. So let's try, you know, this game. Somebody asked me about Divinity 2 Original Sin. That would be an example of one that I would consider. So that's something I might do, but no, I don't have any plans other than my priority right now is XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Chris Abwat Johnson asked if I would do a video in a French accent. Also, where do you find time to do these videos? So Chris, I am just not good at funny voices or accents or anything like that. Not only would I offend anyone of any French ancestry with how badly I was butchering their language, but I think that joke would get old extremely quickly and everyone would just be annoyed. So I'm going to pass on that. Where I find time to do the videos is basically my life when I'm not at work. Okay, your other question was also really funny. He asked if I find myself walking down the street and identifying full and half cover on things. Now, time has kind of dulled my memory, but I swear something along those lines did actually happen to me for a while. And I think it was when I was playing Bloodborne. Before, it wasn't for the channel, but I played through Bloodborne like 4 complete times. And at one point, I found myself as I was walking down the street, like thinking in Bloodborne terms, like I was watching for enemies to kind of come around the corner or out of dark places. It might have been XCOM 2, but I swear I think it was Bloodborne. And it was so bizarre that I did that. So yeah, I don't think it was exactly what you described, but something like that did kind of happen. Okay, Gerardo Alvarez asked, now that I've played War of the Chosen, what new faction hero do I like the most and why? And I'm just going to say again, I need to play more. I'm just not done with the campaign so far. Okay, so far though, I'll at least tell you that I like the Templar the best. I have the most fun playing them. I will say, I think the Reaper is probably the most useful so far and the one that has the biggest impact on the mission. But, I have yet to get even a little tired of Templars. Big Brand Theory asks, I see you played Dark Souls. Did you get good? Well, Big Brand, watch the series and you tell me if I got good. Ed Hart asks, has it ever crossed my mind that we never see any of the ladies on YouTube do Let's Plays of XCOM or other strategy games for that matter? It seems to be a guy thing. And so that is an interesting point. I will say on my channel, because you can see demographics of your viewers, 2% of my viewers are female. And obviously I do mostly strategy games. So I mean, I can't say I have no female viewers, but it's a very, very small slice. And I think I can say I'm not saying and doing things during my Let's Plays that would be specifically off-putting to women, right? Like there's people who will use fairly offensive language and things like that, and I don't do that, right? But nonetheless, what does that mean? Like, why does that happen? Because you're right, there's not a lot of women. I did see one woman who was doing a YouTube Let's Play, and unfortunately she abandoned it. She was struggling with the game, and she decided to do other things. She normally plays stuff like horror games, so this was definitely stepping outside of her comfort zone, and I think she got a little frustrated, and rather than keep banging her head against the wall, she decided to basically do something that would be more fun. And I'm not going to put her down for that. But I was disappointed because I would like to see more of that, right? Why? Like, that's the question I can't even begin to answer because there's so many things we don't know. It's possible that there are very large numbers of strategy game players who are women, but they don't happen to have YouTube channels or watch YouTube videos. Like maybe it's less to do with who plays games on average than who comes to YouTube related to those games. All kinds of stuff like that. Like I just don't know why it's true, but I don't know. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing it. I'm not quite sure how to say this. It's like Asher, or maybe it's supposed to be pronounced Lasher. But anyway, Shag, Marry, Kill, the 3 chosen. That is quite the talent pool you have given me to choose from. The Hunter is the only one I can stand personality-wise, or like bear to listen to for more than 5 seconds. So that's who I would marry, I suppose. You want to kill the most annoying, and that's gotta be the Warlock. So close my eyes and think of England just long enough to get through taking care of business with the assassin. DB6, apparently we had a little sub-theme going here, asks, what do I sexually identify as? Myself. Straight white male, maybe you should have asked him, but I guess you don't need to. He asks, do you have an obsession with Q&As? I don't know. Does doing something no more than once a month constitute an obsession to you? I will let you answer your own question. Omniverse 828 asks, if I could go to BlizzCon, E3, or whatever game event, what would I attend? You know, I am one who does not like crowds, so I wouldn't attend any of them for fun, you know, just because I wanted to. If I had reached a point where I could go and interview people, like if I could have gone to last year's, or rather earlier this year's E3, when they announced War of the Chosen, and I could have interviewed Jake Solomon, and, you know, like I would have done that. And I would have tried to have brought back some good information for you guys. But that's why I would go. BlizzCon, I live so close to BlizzCon, and we have a friend who works at Blizzard. I could go if I wanted to. I don't care about anything that Blizzard makes. And so yeah, I just don't have any interest otherwise. And you know, I apologize. This is one viewer I'm not going to be able to pronounce at all. His name or her name is all in Cyrillic characters. So I will just say the question is, at what age did I first kiss a girl? I believe I was 17 at the time, and I was painfully shy at the time. So if I'm honest, she kissed me. Brown Ninja 97. Were there really 96 people in front of you who took the name Brown Ninja? But anyway, he asks, do I think it's good that Firaxis is embracing their meme culture? The example is Advent Burgers. I'm not really one who follows memes a lot, so like I wouldn't have even known that was a meme if you hadn't told me. But yeah, I think injecting a little humor into XCOM is perfectly fine. So the Advent Burger thing, like I'm not into it or anything, but I'm good with it. Multi Chang asks, what drives me to keep making XCOM content? Well, I still like the game, and that's pretty much what it is. I make the Let's Plays because I enjoy playing. I'm on like mission 20 right now of this campaign. I don't know if I'm going to win or not, but I definitely want to find out. And then the guides are a lot less fun to make, but having made them, it just means so much to me when I see how many people watch them, when I get these comments back from people who were super frustrated and they're just so happy that they found something that helps them through this trouble spot. So there is my answer to that. And last one is, where did I get the name for my channel? I've actually answered this before in more detail. I think you can watch my very first Q&A if you want that. But Tapcat was my Magic the Gathering screen name. And it just had to do with you tap the cards in Magic when you activate them, most cards. And I love cats, so it was Tapcat. All right, I think that's going to do it for now. Let me just offer a very sincere thank you to everyone who left me a question. This video literally would not be possible without you. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope we see you next time.